एक लाइट है वो भी साइड में पड़ रही है और ये तो लाइट नहीं है। कोई लाइटें हैं सर इस बॉडी में? हाँ हाँ हाँ, जो मुंह पे डालते वाली लाइट की मुंडी घुमा दी ना। ठीक है, बस अब देखो वो तो करवाने से पहले तो उससे। चलो ठीक है, मैं करता हूँ, अजय से बात करता हूँ। अजय, तुमने वो लाइट की मुंडी घुमवा दी, अब यहाँ लाइट मांग रहे हैं, दिलाओ। नीचे वाली को उधर को कर देना, वो उधर उस पे जाएगी पोडियम पे, ये ऊपर वाली जाएगी बीच वाली। ये कमरे का टीवी अपना करने स्टार्ट हो गया फिर यार कर यार वो मान ले अच्छा मैं
इधर कर दे इंटरेक्शन इधर सामने तो फड़ के नीचे कर दे, वो इधर कर दे गुरु इधर।
वो स्टेज लाइट ये लाइट देगी।
अरे अरे तो बिल्कुल अच्छी नहीं है।
हाँ नहीं है, ये बंद हो बंद है।
हरिंदर जी नीचे ही कर दो,
नीचे ही करता हूँ।
रहने दो रहने दो रहने दो।
हाँ नीचे कर दो,
हाँ
नीचे कर दे।
नीचे कर दो।
यहाँ देख
नीचे कर दे। कमाई जरा ऐसे कर, हल्की डाउन कर, हल्की डाउन कर, डाउन डाउन, बस ऐसे रहने दे, बस फॉर्मेलिटी है। पता कि फेस पे कुछ तो लाइट रहेगी ना इतने कैप्चरिंग के लिए, अगर इधर डार्क लगेगा सारा थोड़ा फोकस आप ऐसे करते हैं ठीक है जी ठीक, पहला ज़्यादा पहले
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the 18th Foundation Day lecture of IISER Mohali. Today we have with us Professor L. S. Sashidhara, Director, NCBS Bangalore, as the chief guest. Our guest of honor is Mr. San Sanganeria ji. We also have with us Ms. Bhubna Nageshwaran, who is the director of the Ultra International Limited, Ultratech International Limited, I'm sorry. So, Ultra International. I said it right, thank you. So, as we start our program, I request Professor Tripathi, our director, Professor Sashidhara, Mr. Sanganeria, and Professor Jagdeep, our registrar, to come up and take their place on the stage. Thank you, dignitaries. So now we start our program with Saraswati Bandana by Sapna Krishna Kumar.
ज्ञानदायिनी देवी सरस्वती ज्ञानस्वरूपिणी देवी ज्ञानदायिनी देवी सरस्वती ज्ञानस्वरूपिणी देवी हंसवाहिनी ब्रह्ममोहिनी हंसवाहिनी ब्रह्ममोहिनी हंसवाहिनी ब्रह्ममोहिनी करुणा प्रवाहिनी देवी करुणा प्रवाहिनी देवी ज्ञानदायिनी देवी सरस्वती ज्ञानस्वरूपिणी देवी अम्बुजवासिनी अज्ञाननाशिनी अम्बुजवासिनी अज्ञाननाशिनी अमृतमृदुभाषिणी अमृतमृदुभाषिणी दया सागरी दुरितापहारी दया सागरी दुरितापहारी गुरुदास रक्षण करी देवी गुरुदास रक्षण करी देवी ज्ञानदायिनी 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 देवी सरस्वती ज्ञानस्वरूपिणी देवी
Thank you, Sapna. So now I will request our director, Professor Anil Tripathi, to welcome Professor Sashidhara, our chief guest, with a bouquet of flowers. Next, I request Professor Jagdeep Singh, our registrar, to welcome Mr. Sanganeria with a bouquet of flowers. Professor Sashidhara, Director, NCBS Bangalore. Mr. San Sanganeria ji, Managing Trustee of the Sanganeria Foundation for Health and Education. Professor Anil Tripathi, Director, IISER Mohali. Professor Jagdeep Singh, Registrar, IISER Mohali. Ms. Bhuvana Nageshwaran, Director, Fragrance and Flavors, Ultra International Limited. Other dignitaries, my colleagues, and my dear friends. This is a big day for IISER Mohali, because on this day, we started our journey as an institute for science education and research in pursuit for knowledge. We have crossed so many years, and each and every year, we wait to celebrate this day. This is a celebration of our foundation. This is a celebration of science. We invite school kids. Some of them are sitting here today. They come, spend the whole day with us. There are lots of science demonstrations, several competitions in which they participate and get an essence of science in different disciplines. It's only possible for us to do this kind of humongous activity just because we have a strong support system of our students, volunteers who works day in and day out to make this a success. It is because of their relentless effort, time, and dedication, we can celebrate this day so successfully. Today, there were around 2,000 kids who are there in a campus. There were 300 volunteer students who made this thing possible. And finally, we are giving the culmination of this program with this Foundation Day lecture. For our Foundation Day lecture, we have Professor Shashidhara, who will talk about from the origin of life to evolution of self. We thank Professor Shashidhara and Mr. Sanganeria ji to accept our invitation and spend some time with us today. Thank you. Now I request our director, Professor Anil Tripathi, to give a report of our institute, a brief report from Professor Tripathi.
Esteemed chief guest, the speaker of the day, Professor Shashidhara, guest of honor, Sri Sant Sanganeria ji, our Dean R&D, Professor Sudeep Mandal, our Registrar, Dr. Jagdeep Singh, esteemed colleagues, officers, staff, invited guests, researchers, students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this 19th Foundation Day of IISER Mohali. About 18 years ago, on 27 September 2006, the foundation stone of IISER Mohali was laid in the campus of IISER Mohali. Before the IISER Mohali was born, we are privileged to have one person who was very instrumental in establishment of the IISER Mohali, who was representing Punjab government, state of Punjab government, our present registrar, Dr. Jagdeep Singh. The three persons whom we should remember and pay our regards, respects, and tributes behind the establishment of IISER Mohali. The foremost is Professor C.N.R. Rao, who was the brain behind the establishment of all the IISERs. And then he was able to convince the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And third, the one who toiled with the land and soil, Professor Satyamurthy, who was the real founder of this IISER Mohali, who served this institution for 2 terms. The objective behind establishment of IISER Mohali was to create an enabling environment or enabling ecosystem in which the young minds of the country who have passion for science can choose to study science with an aim to make science as their career. Today, IISER Mohali is a name to reckon with, not only at a national level, but also at the international level. Thanks to our dedicated and competent faculty who have been imparting high quality education, science education, and research, and making its name at a global level. Sitting in front of us today, we have 2 iconic figures. One is Professor Shashidhara, another is Sri Sant Sanganeria ji. Both of them are icons in their own domain. And by the way, I happen to know them nearly about the same time. From my days at CSIR CMAP, around that time I met Professor Shashidhara, and from CMAP connection I had the chance to meet Sanganeria ji as well as Bhuvana ji, who is sitting in front of us. And once we knew each other, the connection continued, and that is till today. And I am sure that it will continue in the days to come. Now, IISER Mohali has completed 18 years. Initial phase was in the project mode, when the building was being constructed, labs were being built, and scientists were trying to settle down. And it's almost 10 years, more than 10 years since then, that our scientists have, our faculty members have established themselves well and proven to the global scientific community their might, their capability. Now is the time that we need to fulfill the aspirations and expectations of the country and our society. Now, after having gained confidence that we can use the scientific tools to address some of the basic as well as applied questions, we need to venture into addressing some of the questions which the country has raised or put an objective before itself. We are entering into Viksit Bharat. By 2047, the dream of Viksit Bharat, a country which will be called as a developed country, that has been dreamt by our government. And the strategy has been devised. And in this strategy, the country is supposed to develop into a knowledge economy. We are all aware that IISER Mohali is located in Knowledge City. And the country is deeming towards knowledge economy. And what is this knowledge economy? I was told once, Professor Ashutosh Sharma was giving a talk, and he talked about the two black boxes. One black box in which money goes in and the knowledge comes out. And another black box in which knowledge goes in and the money comes out. I think in India, many of the institutions, the first black box has been larger and second black box has been much smaller. I think the time has come that the size of the second black box has to increase. The amount of knowledge which we have accumulated, and we are accumulating the capability which we have accumulated, this should now, a significant proportion of this knowledge should lead to wealth generation. And therefore, it is our responsibility, the government expects, the society expects, that the money being spent on science, on education, should eventually lead to the economic empowerment of the country. And in the next 25 years till 2047, the country is thinking of using the technology-based development. And the technological developments stand on the edifice of the high-end science, which the institutions like IISER can offer. And therefore, in the days to come, we have to prove to the country and prove to the nation and the society that we are developing some cutting-edge research which will lead to new technologies. And those new technologies will make India a leader at a global level. Now, with this expectation of the country, just to underline the expectations of the country, because whenever we go interact with the ministry, interact with the society, we have to face this question. With this, I would like to present before you a few slides giving the achievements of the last 1 year, some significant highlights of the achievements of the last 1 year. And at the end, I will also like to give you the vision, the plan which we are thinking, that how we will, as an institution, contribute to the expectations of the nation. So, all of us are aware that we have these divisions of biological science, chemical science, earth and environmental science, humanities, mathematical science, and physical sciences. We have 1,700 plus students and 113 faculty members, and offer BSMS dual degree program, integrated MS PhD program, and PhD program. So roughly, I think 500 PhD scholars are working to take our research forward. Now, during last 1 year, several accolades and awards have been won by our faculty, which are listed here. Professor Samrat Mukhopadhyay from Biological Sciences has received the INSA Fellowship as well as the J.C. Bose National Fellowship. Professor Lolitika Mandal, she received the Fellowship of the Indian National Science Academy. And Professor Purnanand Gupta Sharma, who is unfortunately not here, he's in US, he won the Tata Sons Private Limited and New York Academy of Sciences, the first Tata Transformation Prize. One of the 3 winners was Professor Gupta Sharma from the Department of Biological Sciences. Dr. Indranil Banerjee, who has received the Scientific High-Level Visiting Fellowship from the Embassy of France. Dr. Jogender Singh, he received Young Associate 23 from INSA. Professor Ramasastri became council member of the National Organic Symposium Trust. Dr. Subhabrata Maiti from the Chemical Sciences became member of the Royal Society of Chemistry. Professor Vinayak Sinha from Earth and Environmental Sciences became member of the INSA Future Earth National Committee of India. Dr. Gino George, he received Young Scientist Medal from INSA. Dr. Mehak Sharma received Associate Fellowship from INSA. And Professor Sudesh Kanduja received the Srinivas Ramanujan Medal as INSA Honorary Scientist. And Santanu Kumar Paul became Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry. So these are some of the important accolades won by our faculty. And some of our faculty have been very active in getting some of the very prestigious grants from the country and global grants as well. Dr. Indranil Banerjee, Professor Mukhopadhyay, Tripta Bhatia, Anu Sablok, Kamal P. Singh, Devdulal Saha, Gino George, Anu Sablok, Sunil Patil, Jogender Singh, all of them have received these grants from ICMR, SERB, DBT, GVF, CEFIPRA, SPARC, etc. Now, the scientific institutions are recognized by the quality of publications they make. As per Nature Index, the biological sciences of the IISER Mohali is being ranked consistently at number 2 after Indian Institute of Science. But other faculty members in departments of chemistry, department of physics, mathematics, they have been contributing extensively and actively towards the eminence of the institution. And you can see these examples of publications in Nature Communications, PNAS, EMBO Journal, Molecular Microbiology, Chemical Science, One Earth, Physical Chemistry, Chemical Physics. These are some of the examples to establish the credential that our scientists, our faculty members are doing their best to touch the global level of the quality of science. The visibility of any institution demands organization of important conferences and participation also in these conferences. And our faculty members have not only organized conferences in IISER Mohali campus, but also in other campuses like IIT Madras, Pune, and Puri. And the details of some of these conferences is given here. The recognition of students in various conferences, their oral presentation, poster presentation, are extremely important because they are the future of the institution as well as of the country and of the science in general. And here the names of Riya Madan, Soma Sil, Vidushi Gupta, Gagandeep Kaur, Preetam Saha, Anshika Bagla, Mahendra Singh, Swati Singh are worth mentioning, who have received these awards and recognitions. The quality of the education imparted is measured also by one very important parameter about the placement of our alumni in the institutions and the quality of institutions where they have been appointed as faculty. And you can see here that they have been appointed in some of the very eminent institutions, not only in India, but also abroad. And to name a few, Jagdeep Singh, Chinmay Sarkar, Vinod Kumar, Anuj Jakhad, Keshav Agarwal, Tyanya Kaushal, Srivastav, Indubala, Rohit Kumar Giri, Pinka Day, Akshi Deshwal. And you can see that they have got appointments in the institutions in US, Germany, different IITs in Madras, Bombay, Gandhinagar, Mandi, Raipur. This Raipur and Calicut is NITs. So students have been participating in various extracurricular activities. Their performance, academic performance as well as research performance improves if their physical and mental health is good. And since they have been participating and winning the recognition and appreciation in different events, this reflects that IISER Mohali is also taking care of their physical as well as mental health. And they have participated in the North Zone Inter-University Kho-Kho, International Yoga Day, Batch Sports Tournament, Inter-IISER Meet was organized, Run for Unity, Plantation Drive, Cyclothon, Cleanliness Drive, Nature Walk, Treasure Hunt, In-House NSS BSG Camp, and Independence Day and Republic Day celebration. You can see the wide variety of activities in which they have been participating. Now, these are some of the glimpses of the activities in which they have participated, and it's not possible for me to identify everyone and name them. And now here are some of the MOUs which were signed, and remember that this progress report is being presented is up to March 24. I joined the institution in April 24. So the whole progress which is mentioned here is what has happened before I joined. And you see our previous director, Professor Gauri Shankar, signing MOUs with the Plaksha University and some ISB and a couple of other institutions. Now, IISER has been participating in outreach activity. One component of it you have witnessed today, that 1,600 students from different schools they have come. But before that, several other, our outreach is extremely active. And we want to share our capability, our resources, our experience with the students, teachers, and institutions around this place and rest of the country. Now we have taken a few steps towards sustainability, and one such a step is creation of a solar power plant of 500 kilowatt capacity, which is located close to the VH, Visitors Hostel. And recently we got two very large hostels of 420 students capacity constructed, and that has eased out the problems of students who have been living in shared accommodation, and now they are a bit relaxed. I would not say completely relaxed, not single-seated. Not many of them are single-seated, but still many of them have got much better accommodation. Although it's a new hostel, there might be still some hiccups, but we are trying to take care of those. Now, looking ahead, I told you that I'll share our vision, which we would like to do in the days to come, in the times to come. We have been planning to improve our national as well as global ranking. We are seriously working towards it. And one such instrument is recruiting more faculty and creating centers of excellence, which will be visible not only at a national level, but also at a global level. This all will require a lot of infrastructure, and we are trying to find resources to build these infrastructure and to improve the ambience of our campus so that everyone, whether it's a faculty, staff, or student, falls in love with the beauty of this campus. Improving our outreach to share resources, capability, and experience with other institutions, teachers, researchers, and students, which I already mentioned. Establishing Research and Innovation Park to promote the culture of entrepreneurship and startup in the campus, and improving our connect with industry, hospitals, government departments to partner with them in solving their problems. And also, a very important objective for us for the days ahead is to emerge as a destination of choice for scholars and students from across the globe. We have to work hard towards that, but I think the academic ambience of our institution will improve tremendously if 5 to 10% of our students and faculty visitors are from abroad. So that will give a real global feel of this institution. And with this, I would like to thank you with this national bird, which is not only national bird, it is one of the most popular and abundant bird in our campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tripathi. Now may I invite Professor Jagdeep Singh, who is there with IISER from its first day, to give us an idea and a glimpse of the early days of IISER Mohali.
Thank you, Sudeep. Distinguished guests sitting on the dais, off the dais, my colleagues, dear students. This is a very good occasion for me, and it's a matter of pride and joy that we are gathered here to celebrate the 18th Foundation Day of our beloved institution. We have made remarkable strides in our journey. The journey which started about 18 years back, and I'm fortunate enough that I could witness the journey from almost the day one. I had come from, after completing my research project at ICPO Noida, when I joined back in my department, my secretary asked me that we are giving you a responsibility. A new institute is coming up. At that point of time, its name was Indian Institute of Science, Mohali. I participated in the few initial meetings, happened to be part of the troop of the then Chief Minister, Captain Amrinder Singh, going to South Block. It was during one of those meetings, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the then Prime Minister, pointed out to the Chief Minister of Punjab, because the Punjab government has allotted land at Kapurthala, they have a land pool at Kapurthala adjoining the Swarn Singh Renewable Energy Institute, adjoining PTU also. It was the vision of Dr. Manmohan Singh that no, I want this institute to be placed in Chandigarh or near Chandigarh, where air connectivity is there, where world-class faculty can join, where Nobel laureates, they can come freely, and the children of faculty, they can study in good schools. So while coming back from Delhi to Chandigarh, Chief Minister passed on the instructions that we have to look out for a place near Chandigarh. And then it was envisaged that instead of having one institution, let's have a full sector which will be called Knowledge City, which will have many institutions, and it will be just institutional area. So the actual journey, basically, the actual concept was laid on the GT road from Delhi to Chandigarh, that it will come to Mohali. Few incidences I'll share because I'm planning to write a book, and Samrat Mukhopadhyay is helping me in that. So then what happened was, just a week before 27th of September 2006, we got message from Prime Minister office that Prime Minister will come and lay the foundation stone of IISER Mohali. The land was identified but was not demarcated. The original program was that the foundation stone will be laid within this land. But then subsequently, 2-3 days before the foundation day, it was discovered that there was a dispute on a land, small chunk of land of this piece. So the Prime Minister cannot go to that land. So the foundation stone was laid in the auditorium of IISER Mohali. On 25th of September, the then Secretary Sudeep Banerjee, Joint Secretary Ravi Mathur, they came from Delhi to look after all the preparations, to look after all the program. And suddenly, on 25th of September at around 9 o'clock, Sudeep Banerjee pointed out that, have you prepared any brochure? Because the guests will be coming and they should know what is IISER. So then the Punjab government officials, IAS officers, Sumer Gurjar, Narendrajit Singh, and me, we went to Sector 17, graphic designer, designed some brochure, just taking just a wild clue. It was just a wild clue. Even we were not aware what IISER is going to be. This is the document. I just wanted to show it to all of you, which is approved and signed by Sudeep Banerjee on 25th. It's signed and the date is 25th. He made changes that let's make it yellow like this. And this was the original brochure which was distributed, which was placed on the chairs of the auditorium of IISER Mohali when the foundation stone was laid. When, after the function was over, so I was the coordinating officer for the function. So on the dais, off the dais line, when Dr. Manmohan Singh ji was coming down, he asked Punjab government officials, I was also one of them, that who designed this brochure? So everybody was at shock that there may be something wrong with it, something. But of course, they pointed out that he's the person. He shook hand with me and he said, I still remember, well done. This was not a simple gesture. This was a responsibility, faith imposed on the Government of India officials as well as Government of Punjab officials, that we will be building a world-class institution, which we have achieved. But this all happened because of collective effort, sleepless nights, and many years of planning. And all of you, and some of you, those who have left, are ex-students, they have contributed to it. There are many stories related to it, but I'll be very brief. At some other time, I can tell you all the stories, but one or two small stories I will tell. Then there was no demarcation of this sector. We went to the Ministry of Railways, because the Railway Ministry's landmark, they are considered the best even by the Supreme Court. From there, we could find out that this is the Sector 81. And then the demarcation started. Professor Arvind was also part of it. For a few days, we used to come in the month of May to take basically Nishandehi in Punjabi, which is called the complete demarcation of the land. And incidentally, The all land, basically, if you see the document of INST, NABI, Indian School of Business, the possession of land, if you happen to see those documents, you will identify signature of a person who happens to be your registrar now. This is how, then there was, from January onwards, the government started looking out for the director. The first designated director, I won't name, he came in January 4th. Eventually he refused on 6th of January that I cannot take up this responsibility because my research would suffer. Second designated director came in March. He again left. He said no. Then in June, I had gone on an official duty to Riyadh and Bahara College. It used to be college, and they have applied for a university. I had gone there for an inspection, whether the government can grant license to it to be a university. I got call from the then Chief Secretary, Shri Ramesh Inder Singh ji. Very dynamic and very helpful person. Whatever little bit of administration I know, I have learned from him. He called me, he said, Jagdeep, tomorrow the third designated director is coming by Shatabdi. You have to receive him, and not just receive him, you have to convince him that he should remain as director, otherwise your job is gone. So it was a huge pressure on me. So I had gone there. In current science, I think Professor Satyamurthy has written that. The third designated person was Professor Satyamurthy. The whole credit of establishing this institution goes to Professor Satyamurthy. He sacrificed so many things, he and his wife. He did so much for this institution, really, really remarkable. So where we are sitting, the comforts which we are enjoying, the freedom which we are enjoying, and the kind of reputation to which we have reached, of course, your contribution is there, but of course the major contribution is of Professor Satyamurthy, and then subsequently the directors which followed Satyamurthy. I'll just say just one or two things and then I will end. I may have forgotten something. So basically now I'll end here, not going, I think everybody's waiting for Shashidhara's lecture. We have to achieve greater heights. Further, we have to go further. But again, we need to have a collective effort. We'll need to make collective effort. May not be sleepless nights, but we have to basically extend our boundaries, expand our boundaries, and reach new horizon. Congratulations to all of you on the 18th Foundation Day, and thank you for giving me that.
Thank you, Professor Jagdeep. Now, every year on this day, we release our annual report, and the time has come to release the annual report, IISER Mohali 23-24. But this year, we are going to release, it is an electronic release with the press of a button. So with the press of a button, we'll get to see the cover pages of the annual report on the screen. So may I now request Professor Shashidhara and Mr. Sanganeria ji to jointly press the button and release our annual report. Sumit, क्या हो रहा है? I think it's too far. Thank you very much. So now we'll ask our guest of honor, Mr. Sant Sanganeria ji, to deliver his address to us. But before that, let me take 1 minute to speak about Mr. Sanganeria. Mr. Sant Sanganeria is a distinguished figure in Indian industry and began his journey in the world of fragrance and flavors way back in 1965. A proud member of a family known for its contributions to industry and philanthropy, Mr. Sanganeria completed his education at St. Xavier's College in Calcutta, earning a bachelor's degree in commerce. His aspirations led him from his birthplace to New Delhi, where in 1969, he laid the foundation of Radha Sales Corporation, focusing on the import and trade of essential oils and aroma chemicals. In 1987, his ambition saw further fulfillment with the establishment of Ultra International Limited, a premier manufacturing unit of fragrances, flavors, and essentials oils, over which he presides as chairman and managing director. Rooted in the traditions of Calcutta, Mr. Sanganeria's early education and life experiences shaped his vision of becoming a leading force in the fragrance industry. His transition to New Delhi marked the beginning of a fruitful enterprise that has set benchmarks in the realm of fragrance and perfumery. His focus on quality and dedication to his craft earned him widespread respect in the industry, where he quickly became known for his attention to detail and commitment to excellence. Mr. Sanganeria's contribution to the fragrance and flavor sector have been widely recognized. Notably, in September 2016, he was bestowed with the IFEAT Ronan Neal Founders Award, an honor presented to him during the 40th anniversary celebrations of IFEAT. Recognizing his significant achievements and enduring service to the industry. Additionally, in the year 2019, he received the Sarthak Samman from Hindu College, New Delhi, in recognition of his generous and impactful support to the institution. Beyond his professional success, Mr. Sanganeria's heart has always been with those who are less fortunate. He established the Sanganeria Foundation for Health and Education, an organization committed to uplift women and providing crucial health and educational support to the underprivileged. This foundation stands as a testament to his deep-seated values of service and his commitment to giving back to the society. His influence extends beyond India's borders, where he is an active participant in global fragrance and flavor associations. He is associated with the prestigious organizations such as Research Institute for Fragrance Materials, RIFM, in the USA, the International Fragrance Research Association, IFRA, in Belgium, the International Federation of Essential Oils and Aroma Trades, IFEAT, in the UK, the International Organization of the Flavor Industry, IOFI, in Switzerland, the Flavor and Extract Manufacturers Association, FEMA, in the USA, and NEA in the Netherlands. Mr. Sanganeria's journey, marked by his excellence in industry and unwavering commitment to philanthropy, is a shining example of leadership rooted in tradition and values. His work continues to leave an indelible mark on the fragrance and flavor industry, while his charitable efforts reflect the time-honored belief in the importance of giving back to the society. Through his actions, both in business and in service, Mr. Sanganeria stands as a paragon of success and compassion, embodying the virtues of a true leader. We thank you, Mr. Sanganeria, to be here with us today, and may I now request you to deliver your address.
সুদীপ্তদা, আপনি অনেক বলেছেন, এত বলবার আপনাকে ছিল না, যাই হোক আপনার ইচ্ছে। নমস্কার, good evening, honorable dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, and Professor L.S. Shashidhara, Director NCBS Bangalore, Professor Anil Tripathi, Director IISER, Professor Sudip Mandal, Dean of Research and Development IISER, distinguished faculty members, esteemed guests, and dear students. It's a great honor and privilege for me to stand before you today as we celebrate the Foundation Day of Indian Institute of Science Education Research Mohali. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Institute for inviting me to address such a distinguished gathering of such scholars and researchers. I have never addressed a gathering with such a high concentration of intellectuals under one roof, and I hope I am able to do the justice in the task assigned to me. This celebration marks not only a reflection on the past, but also a vision for the future, and I trust that the reflections and insights shared today will pave way for future success and advancement in our field. IISER Mohali's commitment to scientific excellence and innovative research provides invaluable support to our sector. Though it is pioneering studies and interdisciplinary approaches, the Institute contribute to the development of new methodology and technologies and address the evolving demands of our fragrance and flavor industry. It is ever-evolving landscape of F&F industry. We face a multitude of challenges that are dynamic as they are complex. My journey through this industry has vividly illustrated the transformative power of innovation, resilience, and dedication. It is with great pleasure that I share some insights from my experience, hoping they will inspire and inform the brilliant minds present here today. One of the foremost challenges in our industry is navigating the intricate web of regulations and standards that govern our products. As consumer awareness and safety regulations continue to evolve, we must constantly adopt our practices to comply with our guidelines. This necessitates a rigorous approach to research and development, ensuring that our products are not only innovative, but also meet the highest standard of safety and efficacy. On the international stage, differing regulations and standards across countries pose a significant challenge. Each market has its own set of rules governing fragrance and flavor products, from safety assessment to labeling requirements. When I say each market, means each country, and within the country, each state too. They have different standards and different requirements. Navigating these varied regulations requires a deep understanding of global compliance issues and the ability to adapt our strategies accordingly. The global push towards sustainability has profoundly impacted the fragrance and flavor sector. The industry is increasingly scrutinizing for its environmental footprint, from sourcing raw materials to production processes. Adopting sustainable practices such as utilizing renewable resources and minimizing waste is no longer an option but a necessity. We must embrace green chemistry and innovate with a conscience, aligning our business practices with the global imperative for environmental stewardship. This is a growing consumer demand for natural and authenticate ingredients driven by heightened awareness of health and wellness. While this trend offers exciting opportunities, it also presents challenges in sourcing high quality natural materials and maintaining consistency in product performance. The pursuit of authenticity requires a deep understanding of botanical science, coupled with advanced analytical techniques, to ensure that our products meet the highest standards of purity and quality. The pace of technological advancement is reshaping every aspect of our industry. From cutting-edge analytical tools to AI-driven fragrance creation, technology plays a crucial role in shaping the future of fragrance and flavor. By harnessing the power of machine learning, algorithm, and data analytics, we can now predict consumer preferences with unprecedented accuracy, optimizing ingredient formulations and streamline production processes. AI-powered tools enable us to stimulate and analyze complex fragrance profiles, accelerating the innovation cycle and enhancing product customization. As we advance integrating AI into our strategies, not only holds the potential to redefine our industry, but also underscores the importance of fostering collaboration between technology and tradition. Embracing AI-driven innovations will empower us to navigate the evolving landscape more effectively, ensuring that we remain at the forefront of dynamic sector. Staying ahead of these advancements requires a commitment to continuous learning and adaptation. Collaboration between industry and academia can drive this innovation, fostering an environment where new ideas can flourish and translate into groundbreaking products. As the world becomes increasingly interconnected, the fragrance and flavor industry must navigate diverse market dynamics and culture preferences. Globalization presents both opportunities and challenges, necessitating nuanced understanding of regional trends and consumer behaviors. Successful navigation of these complexity requires agility, cultural sensitivity, and ability to anticipate and respond to shifting market demands. In addressing these challenges, it is imperative that we cultivate a spirit of collaboration and knowledge exchange. Institution like IISER Mohali plays a pivotal role in advancing research and fostering innovation. This was today discussed with me when I talked to Professor Tripathi, that why you have called me here, sir, today. And he started laughing. Then I understood everything. He sent me to a quite big room full of deans, professors, academics, and all other people sitting there, and I was astonished. And anyway, it was my say, so I asked them clearly, what my name is this, and what exactly you need from me, what exactly you want from me. And then the thing started, and then we started delivering each other regarding academia and institutional, professional, and co-ownership of everything between IISER as well as other academias, other institutions, our members of the community. By bridging the gap between academia, research, and industrial application, we can drive progress and overcome the obstacles that lie ahead. My sincere thanks to Professor Anil Tripathi, Director of IISER, and Professor Sudeep Mandal, Dean of Research and Development, for their diligent efforts in coordinating the arrangements for the important event. I also wish to thank the entire IISER Mohali community for their warm welcome and support. I am confident that the discussion and exchanges today will further enhance the esteemed reputation of this institution. May the light of knowledge continue to shine brightly at IISER Mohali. I will speak to Gita shloks today just because I feel that my friend Professor Tripathi also likes to listen. Karmanne vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalhe turbur mate sanghosha karmani. Another one is yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyusthana dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. I think all of you knew what I am telling and what is the meaning of this. Maybe Professor Tripathi will tell you better on this. Lastly, I would like to say that during the inauguration of one of my new auditorium in Delhi, in Hindu College, University of Delhi, my first logo was Tamso Ma Jyotir Gamay. Lead to the, just a second. Lead us from unreal to real. That is Asatoma Sadgamay. Another one is Tamsoma Jyotirgamay. Lead us from darkness to the light. Earlier I was wrong, I was interpreting wrongly. Now it is Asatoma Sadgamay. Lead us from unreal to the real. And Tamsoma Jyotirgamay. Lead us from darkness to the light. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Sagderia ji. Now, we will move on to the Foundation Day lecture to be delivered by Professor L.S. Sashidhara. Professor Sashidhara is an esteemed Indian developmental biologist, currently serving as the director of National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore. He completed his undergraduate and postgraduate studies at the University of Agricultural Sciences, Dharwad, before pursuing his doctoral studies at the University of Cambridge. His independent research career began at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, CCMB, Hyderabad, where he worked as a scientist and a group leader. In latter years, he made a significant contribution to the growth and development of IISER Pune and Ashoka University as founding academic member. Professor Sashidhara is a leading expert in genetics, molecular biology, and evolutionary biology. His groundbreaking research on the fruit fly Drosophila melanogaster has unveiled crucial gene regulatory networks, controlling the positioning of cells, tissues, and organs in the body, and determining organ size and shape. His work has shed light on the diversity of wing number and size across major insect species. His research extends to understanding these mechanisms in various epithelial cancers and leveraging Drosophila for drug discovery. In clinical breast cancer research, Professor Sashidhara has played a pivotal role in establishing a translational cancer research center focusing on India-specific studies about triple-negative breast cancer. Beyond research, Professor Sashidhara is deeply involved in promoting science education and policy. He collaborated with the Ministry of Education to train high school and undergraduate teachers in adopting inquiry-based teaching methods. Additionally, he organized career workshops for scientists in science journalism, science policy, climate education, administration, and management. He has also served on the board of India Bioscience, demonstrating his commitment to India's life science and research community. Currently, he is leading an international project on climate change education. Professor Sashidhara has held notable positions, including the Vice President of the Indian National Science Academy and the Secretary General of the International Union of Biological Sciences, IUBS. He is currently the President of IUBS, the first Indian to be elected in its 100 years history. He has received several awards, including the prestigious Shanti Sharoop Bhatnagar Prize for Science and Technology and the J.C. Bose National Fellowship. He is an elected fellow of all the Science Academies of India and has been elected as an EMBO member. His leadership in building institutions and communities, promoting science education, and contributing to combating the pandemics have profoundly impacted Indian science and society. We are really privileged to have Professor Sashidhara with us, and now I request Professor Sashidhara to come and deliver the Foundation Day lecture. Can I now request our dignitaries to take the front row seats of the auditorium for Sashi's talk.
Thank you very much to Professor Anil Tripathi and for Sudeep Mandal for this kind invitation, and of course Sudeep's very long introduction. I wish it was shorter. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here because it's an IISER, and also it's an IISER Mohali. And I've been visiting IISER Mohali since its inception, and there are great friends, and it's a bit odd to be on the dais when many of my faculty friends are in the audience. But anyway, now I'm happy here. So we are already sort of perhaps delayed by about 30 minutes or so. I'll try to be brief. But when, as a Foundation Day, initially I thought maybe I should talk about my own research, or maybe talk about what IISERs have done collectively. You know, there are 5 IISERs started in the beginning, and then 2 more IISERs were added more recently. You know, and many times in the history, we try to understand the impact of certain decisions, certain institutional you know, establishment after 50 years, after 30 years or some kind of. Like IITs were set up in 1950s. There was a clear understanding that the technical skills that would be developed among the Indian community will contribute to nation building in a variety of different ways, right? Literally building buildings to, you know, building programs, right? And while there was a vision, there was a dream, there was always risks associated with how much it will be fulfilled, because there were no deep pockets in those days, whether the government or the private. There were no good number of you know, campuses to attract large number of students and train them. But history tells us that it was a wise decision. And again, when 2004, post-liberalization, when Manmohan Singh became Prime Minister, he established what's called Knowledge Commission. That Knowledge Commission decided that India should move more from service economy to knowledge economy. Service economy has their ups and downs. You know, it always depends on what happens outside the world, outside India. Maybe, you know, they may take service, may not take service. They may buy products, you know, if you set up a manufacturing, like garment manufacturing, they may or may not buy, right? What happens later? Like, for example, call centers. Call centers were a big time job opportunities for young kids in 90s. By beginning of 2005 to 2000, or in the beginning of 21st century, they're all gone. So that's what they decided we should move more towards knowledge economy. What is knowledge economy? Where you actually use the knowledge and innovation and generate new product, new solutions, and new ideas for the society. And the society already we knew by 21st century that it's extremely unsustainable, the current method of development. We need to provide more sustainable solutions. So that required better understanding of your natural world, better understanding of the social world, better understanding of how the you know, equity can be brought in the society, whether it is food security, whether nutrition security, whether it is access to, you know, health. Equity was very, very important in a country like ours, which was still a struggle for a large part of our population. Given that science-based, evidence-based, data-driven solutions was what was needed, for that we needed to integrate basic science with technology. In the beginning, technology was given more importance through IITs and engineering college and so forth, and basic science sort of lagged behind, although there are fantastic basic science was done in places like Indian Institute of Science and TIFR, but none of them had undergraduate teaching. So to bring in undergraduate education in a research-intensive organizations, they conceived a new set of organizations, what we are today here, Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, and these are the ones where undergraduate teaching learned by doing research, not just by attending classrooms. The faculty do fantastic research, they go to the classroom, teach basic concepts, students learn with good motivation because there are fantastic teachers here who have done research, they're well connected to the rest of the world, they will understand the deeper insights into the scientific thoughts. At the same time, undergraduate students also learn by doing research. In fact, in IISERs, typically half the time you spend in the labs. In some IISERs, like IISER Pune, 60 to 70% of the time of undergraduate student is spent in the labs, and 30 to 40% of the time in the classrooms. So you learn by doing research, and also at the same time in the classrooms. So given this, we already have lots of examples of the success stories from IISERs, and many of the students, Professor Tripathi already showed the number of students who have excelled and taken up academic position in very good places. And you forgot Abhilasha Joshi, one of your students who is a faculty at NCBS, joined last month, September 1st. Oh, sorry, we are in September, so this month. Okay, so that's sort of, I'm very happy to be here for that purpose. Now, given what is that Foundation Day I should talk about, and because it's a deeper basic science connected to technology and innovation, I thought let's talk about some of the fundamental concepts in biology which have emerged in the last 15, 20 years. This talk is going to be extremely basic for biology faculty here, biology students here, and perhaps it's more sort of targeted towards non-biology faculty and students. I'm trying to make it very basic. The reason I've chose this is understanding of genetics, evolution is fundamental to understanding biology, fundamental to understanding life, right? And then one can ask the question, we do so many things, in biotechnology. People have already developed vaccine and supplying to the whole world. We are, so many biotechnological innovations happen in India as well as outside, and very different products are coming out. India has now launched Bio E3 policy with lots of confidence that Indian biologists, we should be able to deliver biomaterials, biomimetics, and so forth. Then what is that? The fundamental understanding of life will help other than these things. One is understanding self, understanding the society, understanding humanity per se. There's a lot of implication in this. Society, as you know, every day in the newspaper, what we see is the conflict. You read more about conflicts. You read conflicts within the country, conflict between groups, conflict between communities, conflict between regions, between languages, conflict between nations. It's going on forever. We thought for about 50 years there was some kind of a pause after the Second World War. Suddenly in the last 2-3 years, things have flared up and more conflicts are emerging. Have we understood enough about life that we can reduce these conflicts? Actually, we have understood. Perhaps we are not communicating well. So the purpose of this talk is actually try to bring about how well we have understood very different aspects of life, which basically reduces the dependence on all kinds of faiths, dependence on all kinds of myths, dependent on all kinds of misconceptions, which are what leading to many of the conflict that we see in the society. So that's the purpose of choosing this talk. I'll try to be very brief, hopefully about 40 minutes or so, and I know we are already late. Okay, so very quickly, without getting into the too much in detail to the early aspect of the discovery of very different aspects of life. Many of them are school textbook information. Many of you, or all of you, would have read. Unfortunately, perhaps the topic evolution is not well taught or not taught at all in many schools or in the recent days. And hopefully those topics will come back and will become prominent in our learning experience. So understanding life, when Mendel wanted to study, many of you studied Mendel genetics, patterns of inheritance, and actually Mendel, what he was trying to understand is trying to understand the life itself. But how do you begin with a very complex phenomena? The one way to begin is every time an individual is born, a new life is born, right? How about understanding how they inherit all the features to become life? Obviously, a pea plant will give rise to another pea plant, so it's a living organism. Just because you see a living organism coming out, same pea plant is coming out, doesn't mean that you understood something. So he actually intelligently chose certain specific characters which are morphologically distinguishable, like tallness or dwarf, tall plant or a dwarf or a color of this flower and so forth, and look for their inheritance pattern. So in a way, every time an organism is born, it is born, a new life is born, and a particular species of life is born, like in this case, pea plant. In human, it's human, and then certain specific features of that particular family of the parents are inherited. So this is how he conceived that, hopefully we should be able to understand life if you understand some patterns of inheritance. Darwin, at the same time, although not known to each other, he was looking at evolution of organisms. By the time concept of evolution was already in place, particularly 200 years of natural historians working on natural history of plants and animals had come out with very different hypotheses related to how organisms are related to each other. So either related just because of genesis or related because they are sort of evolved over time and there is some kind of a pattern. But Darwin is the first one to give a mechanistic understanding of it. Every time organisms reproduce, there are variations. These variations, when they are subjected to varying environment, there is some variations reproduce higher frequency, some at a lower frequency, and this process we call as adaptation. And if it continuously happens over time and again, every generation, there is more and more divergence happens of the populations, and invariably they may become new species. Again, he didn't have a clear mechanistic understanding of how variations are generated, what is the source of variations, because he never really had understood about genetics. He had not read Mendel's work. Sometime around the same time, because of better microscopes in the beginning, in the late 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, people understood that cells are not just unit of life, cells are life in itself. There are unicellular organisms, they're happily living. You take blood from human and see under a microscope, you can see neutrophils happily moving around, chasing bacteria and so forth. They realized that everything that we talk about life, it's already there in a single cell. So if you follow what's happening in a single cell, we should be able to understand what is life. And then we're trying to understand what is there in the cell to make, that is inherited, that provides all the features of a living organism and all the, of course, morphological features that we see. There is also very interesting phenomena that, beginning of 20th century, large number of physicists were also, interacting with biologists. There were lots of discussions were happening. The physics was well established field by that time. The post-Newtonian, people already say that anything that has a clear pattern that you can observe, you can predict the, certain kinds of emergence of the properties that must be material based. Until then, life was considered an abstract phenomena. Something is infused. It could be something godly or something energy, something like an electricity, like what Mary Shelley did in Frankenstein's story. But finally, people realized that it must be material based. So they started looking for what is that matter inside the cell that is where the genetic material, and that's what is inherited, and that's what gives us what is called features of life. And then if you fast forward about 50 years of discoveries, nucleic acid were discovered. They showed that they are the genetic material, and then DNA's double helix structure and semi-conservative method of replication gave us a fantastic idea about how information is present in DNA, how it is replicated again and again, make copies of it again and again, with high degree of fidelity. Irrespective of how many variants are generated every time an organism reproduces, most important aspect is high degree of fidelity. If 7 billion children have born in the last 50 years, all the 7 billion people have born as human beings. there may be family-specific or community-specific, national-specific or ethnic-specific features, but invariably they are all human beings, because that's what high degree of fidelity means, right? But there are some variations too, right? And how information is coded, decoded, and all those things were studied in the next 20 years also. By 1970s, we had sufficient understanding of it. So with better understanding in the last 50 years, post-1953, we know what life is all about. It is all chemistry. But it is organized, specific way of chemistry. That is because these chemical reactions happen in a particular time and space, and that space has a certain structure, and those structures are the ones which keep all the reactions because of molecular crowding and all aspect of it. And that basically allows you to have a very deterministic reactions. All the chemical entities that are present in this air, there must be always some chemical reaction happening because of collision of atoms, right? Collision of molecules. But none of them you actually are certain events. There is certain probability it can happen, not necessarily that it happens for sure. But in your body, in all our living system, it's with certainty reactions happen because of the proximity of these chemical entities, and that proximity comes because of the structure that is there inside the cell, and that's basically life is all about. Finally, chemical reaction in a controlled situation is what is life. So at the same time, people also found out that how new variations are generated. There is some kind of a mismatch once in a while it happens, once in a million, one in million, typically across bacteria to human, where these variations are generated during DNA replication. Of course, there are multiple other larger variants that happens at low frequency, but typically the fuel for evolution, what Darwin was looking for, are these variations which are generated during DNA replication, and they are spread in the population at very different frequencies depending on the nature of variations and their impact on the organism's ability to survive and reproduce, what we call as fitness. And this is happening for the last 3.75 billion years, and that basically is what we see today. This is a famous National Geographic picture that many of our kids see and enjoy every day, and this biodiversity is because of these, the fundamental mechanisms of life, and then every time an organism reproduces, some new variants are generated, and the environment is continuously changing. Environment changes because of physical factors, environment changes because of the biological factors, and that basically makes certain variants to survive and reproduce at higher frequency. Now, but all these things will still tell you about where it all began. So that quest is still going on, although we don't have an appropriate answer, but there are fantastic, leads already. In fact, the origin of life is already a question in Darwin's mind. In his last paragraph, in the last paragraph of his book, Origin of Species, he writes this sentence. Somewhere you can see this, right? Originally breathed into new forms or into one. Basically, one cellular form of life perhaps originated and emerged, whichever the word you can use, and then subsequently life is evolving since then, 3.75 billion years. Now, when people started looking at the very different molecular mechanism or chemical mechanism of life, they found out that this intermediate RNA, which is a messenger, supposed to be messenger, to transfer information from nucleic acid-based DNA to protein-based, amino acid-based proteins, which are the real workhorses in the cell. They found out that the basic machinery which make these protein ribosomes, the enzyme which catalyzes the two amino acids to come together to make a peptide bond is actually an RNA molecule. So in a way, RNA itself has a catalytic properties. They have actually discovered in multiple different other contexts too that RNA has certain catalytic activity. And now there is a race to understand the origin of life. There are two aspects of it. One is how an RNA can replicate in itself at a high degree of fidelity without losing information or with minimal loss of information. And the second is how it is sort of encapsulated into a cellular-like structure, where is the very origin of this, and that basically what is the first protoplasm or minimal cell which one could think of. There are two ways people are doing. Typically, the way we do science in two ways. You use analysis and you use synthesis. Darwin is a fantastic synthesizer of ideas. And experimentally also you can do synthesis in addition to doing analytical methods. So people are trying to synthesize a living new cell, see what could be a minimal cell, and see whether that minimal cell could be the representative of the very first cell that originated. And of course, you can still go around and check where you could find such kind of cell even today on Earth. For example, it could be in hot spring somewhere, or it could be in what's called under the sea. What is called thermal or hydrothermal vents. Hydrothermal vents, right? On the sea plate. So people are looking for such kind of things. Archaea is already, we know, it's one of those primitive unicellular organisms. Now, it's not enough. The quest of understanding life is not about simply why this tree is like this, why this animal, tiger is like this, or an elephant is like this, or an insect is like that. Most of the time, it is trying to understand ourselves. Because, if you look at all the philosophers that I am because I think, kind of philosophers to Indian philosophers, to Western philosophers, to Japanese or Chinese philosophers, everybody, the philosophy is all about trying to understand us first. Understand self, and then understand us, right? Because we have a language to talk to each other, people are always talking to each other about understanding this, the question about understanding the human so-called mind, which you can call as a human brain or something. And that also, scientifically, you want to do step by step. Forget about human brain. First of all, how the two-legged, humans may have evolved because we are so close to the primates. Most of them walk using 4 legs, and how come we are walking with 2 legs and so forth, right? And if you look at we have now the same Darwinian method of evolution has led to human evolution, and we have separated from a common ancestor after a common ancestor about 5 million years ago from between chimpanzees and us. Chimpanzee is one arm, and we are the other arm. And you can see there are so many different species have evolved over time, but only one has survived so far, right? And it's interestingly, when people started looking at the fossil records of very different human species, they found out that not only that some of the species existed at the same time on Earth, some of them are also lived in the same space. So obviously one would ask the question, maybe they have connected to each other, contact to each other, maybe they met each other. So what happened to them? Why didn't they survive? Is it because the modern humans simply killed them? Because we had anyway genocidal tendencies, and perhaps we may have killed all those other species. But interestingly, very recently, in the last decade or so, people have found out that we actually not killed. It's like any other species, there is also hybridization of these subgroups. So typically during speciation, not necessarily that suddenly two diverging populations will become two different species. Many times they come back, they actually have a not necessarily interspecies, but interpopulation hybridization. And we did have that kind of tendency too. We have, for example, Neanderthal genome in modern humans. We also have Denisovan genomes in Indians. In fact, India is, and this particular part of, Northern Europe and India, this is where maximum this kind of mixing has happened, right? When India has both Denisovan and Neanderthal genomes, right? And, okay, now, because we are sitting in India, we are very proud of our country, we are proud of our population and everything. But one thing we should be proud of is this is a fantastic geological phenomena. It has a lot of history in its own, geological history. And this particular geological phenomena, which made India is some kind of a captive place when humans were spreading. Like any other animals, typically humans also spread. It's not migration, by the way. Today we use the word migration. When animals move from place to place, it's called spreading. Migration is a targeted movement. Animals do migrate. For example, the birds, the migratory birds, they know exactly where to go and then go back to their breeding place, after winter is over. Or the great wildebeest migration in Kenya is also a targeted movement. But most of the time, the animals simply move around, right? And humans too did that for several thousands of years. And in India, because of this landlocked and sea-locked peninsular geological formation, there's more and more mixing happened. People came more in different time points from different parts of the world, and India became a melting pot of genetics and culture, and that's what India is all about, and that's exactly what we should celebrate every day. Now, quickly, the last part of my talk is finally the quest, irrespective of what we talk about, irrespective of what we say about humanity, helping others, variety of everything, there is something called self, right? You're always, today when right now, when you're thinking about, they must be thinking about something. You're listening to my talk, you may not be listening to my talk, you may be thinking about something. There's always about yourself. There is something called self, right? It's about yourself. Is you listening to my talk voluntarily, or you may be switching off your mind, you're not listening to my talk, you may be present here, you may be thinking about something else. Finally, it is you are doing something, and you have continuously have an awareness of yourself, right? This awareness of self is something which people always thought it's human specific, right? It's not there in other organisms, people always think. Fine, it may be human specific, doesn't matter, but there must be something, some causal reason why it has evolved over time, or whether it is human specific or not. Even if it's human specific, how it has evolved over time in humans is also important to understand. Because our brain, if you look at it, has evolved over a long time. The very first neuron kind of a structure in animals is almost a billion-year-old. And slowly the brain has evolved over time and become more and more complex depending on the way organisms have evolved. And this complex brain today, what we see, is not just suddenly evolved or emerged in human species. It is a continuous evolution. So if, for example, if you take a primate, an ape, for example, an ape brain and human brain, and unless you're a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, or someone who has seen human brain again and again using fMRI or something, you will not be able to distinguish between the two. So it's not something very special in terms of structure of the brain. So what is so special about us that we know about ourselves, right? And we talk about ourselves. So, and that's why I want to use one particular, specific word here, rather than using the word mind. When we talk about self, we always talk about my mind, your mind, someone else's mind, Indian mind, Western mind, and so forth. There is nothing like mind, which is a myth. I know we can talk about it some other time, but I'm going to use more scientific word, because mind, different people have different meaning of mind. Different societies have different meaning of mind. Whereas scientists want to use something, one common definition, which is understandable to entire community. Today, if some are working on some human brain, some aspect of the cognitive function of the human brain, someone in Japan or someone in US also should be able to understand what I talk, what I write about it, right? So word cognition is better. It is a process. It is not an entity. Many times mind, many people think it's something, an entity sitting in your brain, but it's actually a process. Cognition is a process through which we perceive and come out with certain behavioral response. Again, we still not, like origin of life, the understanding of the self is not complete, but we have understood so much, there is sufficient evidence to say that it is an evolved phenomena, it is a process, it's an emergent property of our brain, and it is not a separate entity sitting there and driving our actions. And also there is sufficient evidence that there is no free will. I don't know how many of you know what is free will is. At some other time we can talk about it. One thing you need to understand in biology is what evolves is a structure, and function is an emergent property of that structure, right? For example, I've been working on Drosophila wing development or halter development. It's a balancing organ. It's not a suddenly the flies or insects wanted to fly and then they evolved wings, and because of wings evolved, they started flying. It's not that way. Structure evolves, evolves slowly with very different shape and size. At some point, a function may emerge because it has certain capability to fly. but there is still a selection. That function may or may not get selected over time. That gets selected only in a certain environmental context. If it gets selected, if it is useful for the organism, survival and reproduction, it will perpetuate in the population. That's what function, what we call as an emergence. So for example, flight in insects, flight in bird is an emergent property of the structure which evolved earlier, which we call as wing. So one way to understand whether it is how it has evolved and very different elements of our cognitive functions is by looking at the elements of those cognitive functions in other animals and then find out the neuronal correlation to that. And I understand the causal and relationship to this. Because neurons are cells are basically, all the properties of cells are because of certain chemical reaction or physiological reaction that happens inside the cell. One is to connect to the physiology of the cell, biochemistry of the cell, and to the interneuronal connections, leading to an emergent property, what we call as certain cognitive elements of the brain. So one example is this, which has been very popular feature that people are studying in the last 15 years, is the aggression behavior in insect Drosophila. By the way, the Drosophila is the one I'm going to use more often in my presentation today because I'm a fly biologist. I understand this one better than other things. Rather than talking about human brain, I would rather talk about fly brain. The second is Drosophila has lots of experimental features, easy to study this, and at the same time, it has certain complex behavior, so they can manipulate the behavior and study the neuronal correlation, physiological correlations to the behavioral outcome. So, for example, when two males come together, typically they get into some aggressive behavior. That aggressive behavior is typically either for food or for mate, but usually they don't fight because there is a female, I'm trying to chase that female, and there is another male and they start fighting it. If not because there is a food, because the evolutionary mechanism, what is this? When two males come together, they fight. Invariably, the outcome of that fight will be beneficial to the one which wins the fight, because it will have access to the food and mate if there is something present there, right? So if two males come together, they fight, and invariably, one of them may lose the fight, right? So if you look at this, the two males are fighting, and there is a sort of, anesthetized female here. Because of the pheromones, they have more aggressive in fighting. Sometimes they are less aggressive while fighting if there is no female, but here it becomes more aggressive, right? And typically what happens is, when one male may win, other one will start running away from the place. Sometimes it even chases so that it doesn't come back to the arena, right? So if you take, this is an experiment was done, undergraduate student at IISER Pune. He's now a faculty at TFR Kolaba campus. And what he did was, Nitin Chauhan, that in Arnab Ghosh's lab, he took these pairs of flies and put them together and look at which wins, which loses. Every time something loses, you pick up that one, give some rest, give some food, and then you bring another male and put them together, and then again the fighting goes on. If you do multiple such pairs, some of them turn out to be that they lost the fight consecutively 3 or 4 times. The one which lost the fight consecutively 3 or 4 times started showing less aggressive behavior. As soon as it sees a male, it would run away from that place. It's not even mounting an aggression behavior. That means it remembered that it has lost the fight. That means it's remembering an experience. It's not remembering a shape of something or a smell of something. It is remembering the experience, that experience of losing the fight. And that, you can show experimentally. You take a mutant which has a memory mutant fly. There's a particular acetylcholine receptor which is required for in memory cells for formation of memory. If you make a mutant, those cells, those animals are memory mutant. Irrespective of how many times that it loses the fight, the memory mutants keep on going on fighting. So memory is an important aspect in learning and behavior. Without memory, you cannot learn. Without learning, you cannot modulate behavior. Modulation of behavior is the most important aspect of human brain. People always thought it is something very specific to human brain, not other animals are mostly stereotypic. Although primates, they knew, from Ramayana, whoever wrote at that time too, people knew that primates can modulate their behavior. But most animals, they thought they are very stereotypic behavior. The animals as simple as Drosophila can also modulate its behavior like humans. For example, if you lose your fight a couple of times with your next door neighbor or your own classmate, you would avoid talking to them. You avoid sitting next to that person. You avoid, you move away from that person. And this kind of modulation happens all the time. Not necessarily that you would be, so sort of hot-blooded saying that until the drop of my blood, I'm going to go and fight for that person. Right? That won't happen in normal days with normal people. Okay, so lots of interesting questions were asked and addressed, and then you can also ask many other, higher order cognitive questions using fly model. Lots have been answered already over time, and hierarchical relationship. For example, what happens, let's say if fly is blind versus fly is one, and variety of different other questions you can ask using fly model, and people have actually come out with very interesting answers that how flies modulate their behavior and based on their experience. But only thing is that experience has to be memorized. For example, in humans, autistic children, they do not modulate their behavior. Very stereotypic. Typically, they get stuck at 6 or 7 year of their growth, and then they don't show any modulation of their behavior because stereotypic is simply because they don't memorize many times what they have learned. If they don't memorize, basically they keep repeating the same thing. If you go to the next, even more complex behavioral phenomena, which we can test this and again look for neural correlation. Here, where multiple sensory inputs can also be looked into, right? Most important is understand. This experiment I'm going to show is how flies can be used to address the question of self, understanding self, right? That's a very important aspect of it. How do you know because at least in my case, I can ask any of you, do you understand about yourself? You can tell me using a language that we speak and understand with each other. If I ask a Drosophila, a fly, that do you know what you are, right? How does it going to tell us, right? So you need to have some kind of an interesting experimental paradigm to see whether they have understood self. Here is a simple experiment carried out by Roland Strauss. I think some of our biologists may have met him. He has come into India many times, visited IISER Pune and earlier CCMB and so forth. And many of our students have also worked on this, including Nitin Chauhan, who is a faculty now in one of the IISER students. So here is a simple experiment. You take a platform in which you leave a fly, cut the wing so that it can only walk and it cannot fly, and it has to walk from one end to other end. And once it's acclimated on that platform, then what you do is you create a small a gap. It's like a Lego block. You just take out one of those blocks, and then what happens? So when there is an empty space, it tries to sort of cross the gap by extending its body and extending its front legs first. And once the front legs hold, you hold on to this one, and then they can release the other legs and then, crosses the gap, right? You may ask another question, why it has to do this way? What does it know that it, there is, what happens if it falls and everything? But those are also very interesting cognitive questions, but we can discuss that when there is time later. Sometimes what happens is, if you take a slightly largish sort of a gap, and it tries, and as you can see here, by the way, they are all really fast events, happens in 200 to 300 milliseconds. You take a fast camera and then you are running it slowly, right? So it is trying very hard to hold on to on the other side when there is a solid surface, but sometimes it misses and falls down, right? Now look at the next experiment Roland did, is increasing this width even further or making the fly blind using some kind of a color or some kind of a small piece of paper, and then you see what happens. And he's again doing it learning it very slow, the video, but it actually happens in about 200 milliseconds, right? So it comes to the edge. As you can see here, it didn't make an attempt to cross. The earlier one, it made an attempt, it failed. The first one, it made an attempt and crossed, but it is not even making an attempt. That means it already knows that it cannot cross. Whether if it is blind, obviously it knows that there is a gap. I don't know, I can cross it or not because you don't know how wide the gap is. It goes back. But if it is a normal fly with vision, it's also not doing this. That means it can visually estimate the distance. Now, visual estimation of distance happens to all of us. I know exactly how much I had to stretch my arm to touch something and so forth, right? These flies, do they know that the visual estimation of depth, because it all depends on their body size. That means, do they know their own body size? Then you can actually do this using different body size, flies. So typically what they do is, there is a small, I don't know whether you noticed this, if they can't, one thing they do, there's a very interesting feature, we don't know yet what is the significance of this. They typically take the leg and sort of move around their head and for some time, and then they sort of go back, right? And if that behavior is not shown, that means it already knows that it cannot cross the fly. Here, look at this, it's running, it's really fast, right? It's going back. Going back. So smaller flies avoid even narrow gap. The larger flies avoid the wider gap. Basically, they know their body size. Related to the body size, they avoid whether it is crossable or not crossable, and whether they don't make an attempt even then, right? So that means they have some understanding of self. Forget about understanding of self as I'm an individual, I'm a Drosophila, I'm a mighty Drosophila, most intelligent insect or something. At least they know their body size. It's also understanding self, right? And body size is the context of your surroundings. It's simply not body size per se, right? There's no meaning of body size unless you put it in the context of the surroundings. So look at this one. What I have written is they can also quickly make certain amendments. If, for example, in this fly, I don't know how many of you can notice what happens. I'll run it same thing slowly. It's a normal fly, it has crossed the gap many, many times, same gap. You know what happened? It's almost slipped, and then immediately it sort of somersaulted. She's saying that's how it could survive without falling, and it could quickly make certain amendments depending on the time, right? So in a way, what I'm trying to say is, these kind of experiments connected to, you can take different mutants, you can do what's called single neuron ablation experiment or single neuron excitation experiment using what's called optical tweezers and very different optical, what's a specific word I forgot just now. It's been done many, many times anyway. And these helps to connect this kind of behavior, how many neurons are involved, whether how much of the visual neurons, perception is involved, how much of this, the motor neuron, are involved in controlling the, the movement and so forth. And all these things we can, and then connecting to the memory, how much they, do this based on the past experience and everything, and which dominates what. For example, visual dominance versus, because they have a mechanosensory, sensors in the leg, whether to say whether it is solid surface or there's a gap. But what happens if you put a glass, right? And in humans, people have done this experiment. I'm sure many of you may have walked. It's actually very crazy if you want to walk on a glass bridge on a tall, between two tall buildings, right? Because there is a depth, and the perception of depth is always, humans are afraid of, many animals are afraid of. And visual perception always dominates your mechanosensory perception of it. Like, you're standing on a solid glass, but you still get afraid of walking on that glass because the visual perception dominates. It also connected to which evolved when, which dominates what in the brain. It's true that visual perception evolved first in the brain compared to other perceptions. Use of tools, we are humans are very good in using tools. Is it again human-specific trait that evolved, or it is also slowly evolved in other organisms? It's already there. Use of tools in many, many animals, people have shown. Monkeys use tools, beavers use very different ways of building their dams. They use tools for that purpose, like grass. Bird nesting is also a way of using tools to build the nest and so forth. And I don't have to give any specific example that, use of tools is not human specific. It is there throughout in the animal kingdom, mostly from avians, mostly in avians and mammals. But tools using ability in human has certain specific additional advantage and features. One is not because of our cognitive ability. Don't give too much importance to your brain. Give a lot of importance to your thumb, which has higher degrees of freedom compared to other animals, particularly the primates or apes. The second is our bipedal walking. When you walk, your 2 arms are free. You can use the tools more efficiently, right? You can sort of throw a stone and and hunt, or you can do many things, or you can fight with the help of arms, even when you are walking and so forth, right? Finally, there's mirror neurons, which have been discovered in the last 10, 15 years. They are shown to be involved in a lot of our understanding of self. Because of mirror neurons, we actually have an empathy. Because of mirror neurons, we have some understanding of ourselves. And higher order theory of mind is sort of an emergent property of the presence of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons present in primates, is also present in birds, so at least in songbirds have been shown to be present. I'm sure it's there also in Manjari's babblers, these mirror neurons. And the mirror neurons also, could be the reasons why we have self-awareness. What the final ultimate goal of everything that we want to understand is about understanding ourselves, right? And V.S. Ramachandran, the famous neurobiologist of Indian origin in UC San Diego, is the one who made this famous, statement based on very experimental and observational ones, that these neurons are the ones who sort of not only connect yourself to an outside, another person, and make that, okay, because that person does something, I'm also doing something, I exist because that person is doing this, and there is a cause and effect relationship. You develop an awareness about your activity, but you also sort of, connect to our inwards, and then develop, because when you close your eyes also, you can do many more things. It's also because of mirror neurons and some kind of a internal meta-representation. Now, finally, none of the, what I'm trying to say is none of the traits that we consider very, very good in humans and human-specific, none of them are human-specific. All of them are evolved over time, and we may have certain abilities, but really not unique. Awareness of awareness, compassion, cooperation, sharing, recognition, facial expression, language, it's there in many, many other animals too, right? Self-awareness is there in chimpanzees, is a very, very good example. Cooperation, sharing is there. Monkeys, I'm not going to show this video. You can, you can go to BBC documentary where there is lots of experiments on how primates, non-known to each other, they cooperate and share and equally share the, dividend of the cooperative effort of doing some task. And every one of them, we teach them that it's there in other animals too, perhaps a degree of higher complexity in humans. And perhaps that's what has led us to be a little bit more creative and understanding very different aspect of ourselves. For example, this famous painting of Munch. It's basically even a kid would know that it is someone who is really afraid of something. He's really scared and he's screaming out of some, frightened expression. And it's not that suddenly we understand all of these things because of very specific features. It's simply culmination of higher degrees of, in certain contexts, and higher degrees of our cognitive abilities, which has evolved over time, for hundreds of millions of years from other animals. Now, most important of all of these things is the language, the syntactic language you use. This syntactic language you use has enabled us to have a dialogue which most animals don't have. Most animals talk to each other in a very limited way. They express certain things in a very limited way, using sound as a medium of communication. Many times they use body language or use pheromones and such kind of communications to talk to each other. But using the syntactic language, is there in songbirds. Today I found out that it's also there in babblers. But these syntactic language in humans is the most extensive so far known in any of the other animals, right? So we can actually make longer sentences. We can add 10, 15, 12, 20 words. Many of our PhD students typically write an entire paragraph in one sentence. And our job of supervisor is split into 4 sentences, right? So this language and the position of the word in giving the meaning is what syntactic language is all about, right? And that basically is somewhat human specific. And this language has enabled us to give causal explanation to what we do, which you understand because of why I'm doing. Without this language, you will not be able to talk to each other, will not be able to understand, so you will not have the same level of cognitive abilities. Even self-awareness is because of this. And people have already found out that the children who are born with language disabilities are the ones, many autistic children also have, other than the memory, they also have language disabilities, who can't hear or speak. Invariably, they are the ones who will have a very minimal cognitive abilities, or even self-awareness itself is a question in some of those kids, is because they do not understand you. If they don't understand you, they don't understand themselves, right? It's that help because of the language, right? And today, everything that we have done in humans is because of language. It is because of humanity and not because of individuals. As an individual, like a desktop computer, everybody is equally powerful. Whatever desktop computer can be powerful. But because of the language, all these brains are connected. And as a humanity, we are very strong, right? When Newton said, if I could see Father, it's because I was standing on the shoulder of giants. That's because those giants communicated to each other. From unknown philosophers from east to west, unknown scientists from east to west, and the known ones, of the medieval time to, Greek experimental scientists to modern, up to Newton, whoever done, they've cumulatively accumulated this knowledge, and that knowledge accumulation happens because of the ability of a language, right? Whether there is a script is there or not, knowledge was continuously being, exchanged, and that cumulative language what made us humanity, what we are today. So that besides there are many other messages one can give about looking at the diversity, looking at the human rights, looking at aspect of one. But finally, we are humans. We are special because of this language, which binds us for productive use and not for killing each other. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shidhara. Now we'll move on to our next program. And for that, I request Professor Tripathi and Professor Saganeria and Professor Jagdeep to take their chairs, please. So, may I now request Professor Tripathi and Professor Jagdeep and our chief guest and our guest of honor to come at the center of the stage for their felicitation. So, now I ask Professor Tripathi to felicitate Professor L.S. Shidhara with a plaque and a shawl. question. Plug and a shawl. So now I request Professor Jagdeep to felicitate Mr. Sanganeria ji. Thank you. So, as we do for every year on the Foundation Day, from our library, we give award to the best library user. And now I request the library convener, Dr. Saurabh Bhattacharya, and Mr. Sonam Rigzin, our assistant librarian, to kindly come and make this announcement.
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. Due to the flight delay, Dr. Vishak is not able to attend today's program. It is my privilege to stand here on behalf of library. Every year, the institute confirms the Best Library User Award for the student readers. From this year, initiative of our director, sir, the award is in two categories. First is for the BSMS and second for the PhD. Now I ask Manan Jain, Library Committee student representative, to announce the winner's name. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. So, good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today as we recognize two of our outstanding community members with the Best Library User Award. Libraries are the heart of knowledge and the doors to opportunity and imagination. They are spaces where we grow, learn, and connect, and their importance in our academic activities cannot be overstated. Before presenting the award, I'd like to take a moment to thank our incredible library staff, to our dedicated librarian, Dr. Visakhi, assistant librarian, Mr. Sonam, and all the library staff. Your hard work and commitment keep this space welcoming, organized, and enriching for everyone. Further, I want to encourage each and every one of you to make full use of what our library offers, whether it's exploring new books, diving into research, absorbing yourself in your studies, or having academic discussions with your peers. The library has a lot to offer to you. Now, in the tradition of recognizing exemplary conduct in using the library resources, let us all congratulate Tanmay Kolhe for being chosen as the best library user in the BSMS category. A round of applause for Tanmay. Let us also congratulate Anjali Mahadevan for being the best library user in the PhD category. A round of applause for Anjali. Since Anjali is not present on the campus today, I'd like to invite Pankaj Kumar to collect the award on her behalf. Once again, let us congratulate both of our awardees.
Thank you, everyone. Can I now request our dignitaries to take their chair, please? And now I invite Dr. Sharwan Sherawat, Associate Dean, Research and Development, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sudeep. Dear colleagues and students, we are honored to host Mr. Sant Sanganeria, the Managing Trustee of Sanganeria Foundation for Health and Education, as guest of honor, and Professor L.S. Shashidhara, Director, TIFR NCBS, as the chief guest on the occasion of our Foundation Day celebrations. As we know that in this changing landscape of contemporary research has necessitated redirecting our research efforts in promoting science and technology-based enterprises. Therefore, the inspiring discourse by Mr. Sanganeria has provided pointers in making an impactful mark in fragrance and perfume industry would certainly help us widen our horizons. In particular, some of our students will get immensely benefited in fine-tuning their entrepreneurial skills to take up such initiatives as an alternative career option. The fascinating Foundation Day lecture delivered by Professor Shashidhara has reinforced the idea that basic science would always remain relevant, and the resulting discoveries can help address biomedically challenging issues. Therefore, I thank both the guest speakers for their presence here on this occasion and addressing the IISER Mohali community. Now, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those whose unwavering support and hard work have been crucial in the successful organization of this event. First, I thank Professor Anil Tripathi, Director, IISER Mohali, for his immense support to the program. This includes accordance of financial approvals, providing insights during the planning, and his close monitoring of the execution of all the events. Then I thank Professor Jagdeep Singh, Registrar IISER Mohali, for his teams for facilitating in the management of all the events that we have organized today. I also thank Superintending Engineer Mr. Praveen Srivastava and his team from the IWD for managing logistics in the auditorium and elsewhere. An excellent job performed by Security Officer Mr. Kamaljit and his staff in ensuring seamless security arrangements is highly appreciated. I thank all the deans and their teams, as well as the faculty in charge Computer Center, for helping us in innumerable ways. Special thanks are due to Dean Outreach, Professor Amit Kulsreshtha, the faculty coordinator, Dr. Joginder Singh, for organizing various activities and demonstrations for the school children today. I also thank the committee for selecting the display images for the annual report, among us the several entries that we have received this year. In the same tone, I also thank all the student volunteers who have helped us immensely in designing posters for the event. The help provided by Dr. Sumit Changani, Technical Officer at Dean R&D Office, and Mr. Anuj Kumar at Dean R&D Office is highly appreciated. I also thank all the colleagues from within the institutes and all the dignitaries from outside and the guests for their revered presence today during this event. Last but not the least, so I thank all the students for enthusiastically participating in organizing different events, including the Foundation Day celebrations. We will have actually refreshment after this event, and for students, the refreshments are basically in the foyer, and for staff and faculty, so we have organized these things on the first level of the LHC complex. Before we actually close this event, so I request all of you to rise for National Anthem.
So now I request all of you to join us for a high tea outside. And thank you very much for your presence.
Adapter you too.